الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. There was a topic given for tonight's talk, the ambition in seeking knowledge, but that's part of what we've been going through with regards to the 20 points that are mentioned in the book of Ta'zim al-Ilm by Sheikh Salih al-Usaymi hafidhahullah. But specifically because of the time, inshallah ta'ala, the last point, we stopped actually by point number 15. And this is part, inshallah ta'ala, we have tomorrow the test, inshallah. The 20th point is basically the subject of, or actually the 19th point, is شغف القلب بالعلم وغلبته عليه. شغف القلب. This is the word for ambition, is the shaghaf of al-qalb, when the heart is fully ambitious and going forward and filled with the desire to seek knowledge. And he uses the word وَغَلَبَتُهُ عَلَيْهِ, that he is overpowered. How to reach that level. And with what has been mentioned before, which are principles in the deen, there is consensus among the ummah upon that al-ilm al-shar'i, the ilm of the Quran and the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, this knowledge is the most valuable thing ever on the face of earth. And al-ilmu ibadah, and knowledge, seeking it is ibadah, is an act of worship. And it's like many of the acts of worship and matters of obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when people turn away from it because of the weaknesses of al-iman, then it ought to be for those who are righteous and seek the rewards from Allah, and they have the ability to seek knowledge, that they need to take the means to seek knowledge. And the knowledge are of two categories: al-ilm al-daruri, the necessary knowledge for every Muslim to learn. And this is, of course, it's mandatory upon every Muslim to know what is required for him to learn in matters of belief, in matters of ibadat, tahara, salah, and so on. But we're talking about the second type of ilm, which is not obligatory in essence upon every Muslim, but this is the highest level that a person can seek, and that to take this path of knowledge seriously and to be determined. And that doesn't matter whether a person is young or old, seeking rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So how to have that ambition? And if someone, say for example from the first type, someone that doesn't really have the zeal to seek even the mandatory knowledge upon him, he needs to have that zeal and this ambition to learn the deen. This is the most valuable thing for a person to seek. So this point is such a serious matter, and when it comes to matters of the heart, as we heard it many times, hearts are owned by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one that guides the hearts. And for a person to have a deed done by the heart, he needs to be truthful, he needs to be sincere, he needs to take the means and the steps that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it easy for him, so that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala open his heart more and more for this zeal and for this ambition. And that's why he mentioned the subject of ladhatul ilm. Al-ilm has ladha, like anything else, has an enjoyment to it. And when we see the stories or the biographies of the ulama and the early generations of Islam, they enjoyed the ilm, the knowledge of the Quran and the Sunnah more than anything else in this world. And how to attain this level? He said by three things. And we'll talk inshallah ta'ala briefly, and this is something that we need to take notes of this. The first one, he says, and this is mentioned by Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah in his book Miftah Dar al-Sa'adah, the key for the place of happiness. He said the first one, badl al-wus'i wal-jahd, to make the badl, to give to the best of one's ability, the effort, and to the utmost capacity that you have. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded us, فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُمْ. Fear Allah, be dutiful to Allah to the best of your ability. We are commanded always to do the best we can in whatever command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala we're supposed to observe. For example, the salah that we prayed, we're not commanded just to do it. We're commanded to do it the best we can, according to our capacity. And we have two types of capacities here, the physical one and the non-physical one. The physical one, people are limited. Someone is not able to stand, someone is not able to walk. That's a different situation where a person, according to their capacity, that will be rewarded. But when it comes to the inward, the heart ability, as mentioned before, we're all the same. Everybody has equal opportunity to perfect their acts of ibadah when it comes to the deeds done by their heart. So why people are in different levels when it comes to this? It's because of the weakness of al-iman, because of the sins, because of the ghafla, the forgetfulness, because of many different things. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one that knows what's in the heart, and He knows who deserves and who does not. And that's why to show Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with our hearts that a person wants to do the best he can to the best of one's ability. So that's the first stage. And by the way, this is not a strange thing. People in matters of dunya, anything that is of worldly value, people, they follow the same thing. Right? Anyone that has a joy or the ambition in something, it doesn't happen overnight. It comes after diligent work and determination till he reaches this level. And this is how the human beings, they have very strong means, but many of them, they overlook it. And we have this in the deen of Islam. It's just a matter of a period of time that you're patient with. Be patient with yourself. Put the efforts, struggle, strive. There's nothing wrong with that. Again, as mentioned before, it's not going to kill you. It's something, just be patient with it. And the Salaf al-Salih, the early generations of Islam, this used to be the easiest thing for them. If something that is forbidden, they leave it. And that's it. What they'll go through difficulties for a few days or whatever, then they'll get over it. And then they'll enjoy the rest of their life being obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, badl al-wus'. The second one is something that has to do with the heart, sidq al-talab, to be truthful. Truthfully, that a person wants to reach that level. The one that has the high zeal of things, sahib al-himma al-aliyah, as defined by the people of knowledge, is the one that is never satisfied by anything less than the perfect or the highest state of things. Someone that has the zeal, for example, to a worldly thing, to get a PhD. His zeal is this is his goal. Would he be satisfied if he gets something less than that? No, because this is his objective. So even if he studied for years and he's almost there, he's not happy till he gets what he is seeking. So the zeal and the level that the believers they seek is the Jannah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And nothing would satisfy the believer till they enter the Jannah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's why Imam Ahmad rahimahullah, when someone asked him, متى يجد المؤمن طعم الراحة? When would the believer taste the taste and the sweetness of الراحة, to rest, to relax, to be done? He said عند وضع أول قدم له في الجنة, when he put the first step in Jannah. Before that, يا أيها الإنسان إنك كادح إلى ربك كدحا فملاقيه. O mankind, you are working hard, but you will see it. You will see the fruits of it, the benefits of it. So to have the truthfulness that the person wants to reach the highest level, especially again, as we said, if he has the means to it. And alhamdulillah, most of us, we have the means. But it's just some obstacles that we invented in our imaginations or the shaitan or so. And each one according again to their capacity. Because there's a very important concept that we have to pay attention to it. The niyyah of the believers, أبلغ من عمله, far more takes the person ahead more than his physical actions. And this is something everyone can have a good intention, but with the condition of sidq, truthfully. And we have so many hadiths when it comes to this. Right? Inna bin Madinati aqwaman. In the Medina there are people, as the Prophet ﷺ said when he set out for an expedition and people were left, some of them were in Medina, ما سرتم مسيرا ولا قطعتم واديا إلا كانوا معكم حبسهم العذر إلا شركوكم في الأجر حبسهم العذر. They are with you. They are physically in Medina, and you with the Prophet ﷺ going for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, going through trials and difficult matters and so on, all for the sake of Allah. Those who are in Medina, they have the same rewards like you. Why? حبسهم العذر. The excuse kind of kept them back. They were truthful, but they were not able to come with you. And so many hadiths like this. And even the night prayer. There's a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ That more or less means من كانت له صلاة بالليل, whoever has a salah, a portion of the salah that he prays at night, فنام عنها, he overslept, كتب له أجر صلاته, it will be written, recorded for him the reward of his salah, وكان نومه له صدقة, and his sleep that he overslept, that sleep was a sadaqah, that charity for him. You get a break and something that is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What made this reward is the intentions, is the sincerity, is the truthfulness that the person have in his heart. And this is very well important concept in the deen of Islam. And that's why the sidq, the truthfulness of the believers, we all have to have it. And no excuse not to have it. And how to achieve this, of course, is by having the heart alive with al-iman and to be obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's why with the sidq is the third point, which is صحة النية والإخلاص, the proper intention and the sincerity. So badl al-wuz', the physical means in which a person takes the means to gain whatever he wants to seek, and the truthfulness in the path that he takes, and the purity of the intentions. And these three can never be attained, as he says, إلا مع دفع كل ما يشغل عن القلب. This can never be attained unless you push away anything that makes the heart busy. So again, it goes back to the heart. So to push away this, with one of which is to get to know the ways of the early generations of Islam. And he mentioned some of these examples. And they would say that people of the early generations of Islam, they would say whenever they get a benefit of knowledge, they reach a level where they say, أين الملوك وأبناء الملوك? Where are the kings? Where are the sons of the kings? We have more enjoyment than the kings, and then and more than the sons of the kings. And no one would ever say that except, or no one said that except the people of knowledge. They are the ones that have so much joy in their life because of the ilm that they seek. And many examples that he mentioned here, and that's why this subject of the high zeal of the himmah, as Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah, he said that for every person to be upon what is right, he says that كمال كل إنسان, this is the words of Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah, the perfection of every human being, إنما يتم بأمرين, two things that if you have, you perfect yourself. همة ترقي وعلم يبصره ويهدي. Himma, zeal that gets him elevated, and knowledge that would give him the proper vision of things, right? Which is basically the two forms of power that we always talked about. Al-Quwwa al-Ilmiyya, the power of knowledge, and the power of actions. And the power of that the person would have, which is the ilmiyya, the knowledge one, is to be able to know what is haqq and what is batil. This is a form of power. This is something that is essential. What is right and what is wrong. What is the truth versus falsehood. And then the other form of power is to be able to be upon the haqq, upon the truth, and to stay away from al-batil or falsehood. Once a person has both, which is al-ilm wal-amal, he is then on the proper path and he's guided by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he mentioned the ones that he chose from the prophets of Allah, وَاذْكُرْ عِبَادَنَا إِبْرَاهِيمَ وَإِسْحَاقَ وَيَعْقُوبَ أُولِي الْأَيْدِي وَالْأَبْصَارِ إِنَّ أَخْلَصْنَاهُمْ بِخَالِصَةٍ ذِكْرَ الدَّارِ. وَاذْكُرْ, and remember, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is addressing the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, the best man ever, to take lesson and to follow the ways of the prophets before, and how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala praised them. Our servants, عبادنا Ibrahim wa Ishaq wa Yaqub. What are the two qualities that they have? أولي الأيدي والأبصار. Al-Aidi is the power, is the strength. They had the strength for them to be obedient to Allah, to fulfill their mission, to convey the message that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala entrusted them with. Wal-Absar, which is not the eyesight, it's the vision. It's basically the knowledge. So it's these two things. The strength to be upon the haqq that is based on the haqq that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed to them. And then within the same verses, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala showed how to be upon these two means of power. إِنَّا أَخْلَصْنَاهُمْ بِخَالِصَةٍ ذِكْرَ الدَّارِ. We gave them something purely from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the best gift that a person can ever have in this life. To be upon what we all, that we're hearing here. What is it? ذِكْرَ الدَّارِ. to always remember the hereafter. Because that's what the zeal of the believers, why they have ambition to seek the knowledge. It's not because of showing off or status or money or anything like this. It's all for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the hereafter. And this is the strongest state that a person can be in. And if someone, his heart is like this, he's been chosen by Allah. That he is always in the state of having the remembrance of the hereafter and being diligent and having the concern to be upon this. One of the things, as we heard before, and the ulama, they always mention, this is also from the mulah of al-ilm. This is like from when you put salt on your food, without it, the food doesn't taste very good. And if you put too much, sometimes you won't like it. So one of the things that we seek knowledge, and at the time when you worked so much and you studied so much, you want to rest, they would rest by reading the biographies of the ulama, the biographies of the imma, of the early generations of Islam. It gives you that zeal so that you can see that this is the lineage of the people of knowledge that we need to be upon. And that's why there are reasons, there are means that nations are destroyed because of it, and that there are means to increase that ambition or this eagerness to be upon what is right. One of which, as we heard, so the ulama, they say, the ilm or the knowledge of the virtue of what we need to seek. Right, so we need to, when we heard about the virtue of al-ilm and the importance of this, and what comes with that is to remember the reality of this life, and one of which is death. Al-maut is the reality of this life. We're born and we're living, and then everybody will return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when we constantly think of death, either a person will be depressed and sad about it, which doesn't take it away, or to be real and to face the matter and to make sure that the moment of death is the most joyful one, and that is to have the hearts attached to the hereafter. And one of the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that we always hear, and it's always repeated, من كانت همه الآخرة جمع الله له شمله وجعل غناه في قلبه وأتته الدنيا راغمة. And it's always opposite to what our reason would take us to. It's always this battle and the struggle between worldly matters versus the hereafter. If you wake up in the morning, the concern that you have is the hereafter. What happens? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bring your affairs together, and He would make you rich in your heart. And the dunya, as we heard this before a few days back, the dunya will come to you. Raghima, forced. So you don't have to have your heart attached to it. There's no verses in the Quran that tells you, or a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that tells you make your heart attached and clinging to the provisions and the rizq and the money. There's no such a thing. Your heart, we're not talking about physical actions. Take the means, go to school, study, go to work, perfect. Your heart is not attached to this. Heart is attached to the hereafter. Seeking the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the hereafter, and working on our heart to make it always away from this ghafla or from this forgetfulness. That's why the Prophet ﷺ commanded us to frequently mention death. أكثروا ذكر هذه من لذات. Frequently mention death. Why? Because it puts you in the right place and keep your ambitions in the right place. A person might think if I frequently mention death, it would take away my ambitions to do anything. It's the total opposites for the believers. If you constantly remembering death, what does that mean? It means that you're so ambitious to work for the hereafter. And one of which is to seek knowledge if you have the ability to seek obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is the real ambition, and this is what a person should be upon. And the many, to remind ourselves with these types of hadith, where the Prophet ﷺ, when he would say to the people right by the graves when they would bury someone, and he would say, أي إخواني لمثل هذا اليوم فأعدوا, for this day prepare yourself. And there's none of us, unless we know someone or a loved one that they had passed away, a relative or so. They used to be with us, we used to talk to them, we know them very well, and things like this, and then they departed, and everybody's waiting for their moment to depart from this life. This is the reality of this life. So whether we put our heads in the ground or whatever, it doesn't take away this. So the real ambition of things is to be upon this meanings that the Prophet ﷺ commanded us to be. And another point that the ulama, they mentioned, of course, is the dua. Make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And there's an authentic hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that is reported by Ibn Hibban, and it's an authentic hadith. The Prophet ﷺ said, إِذَا تَمَنَّى أَحَدُكُمْ فَلْيُكْثِرْ فَإِنَّمَا يَسْأَلْ رَبَّهُ. If one of you wish for something, فَلْيُكْثِرْ, that means make it a huge wish. Don't make it a small one. Don't say, oh Allah, I just want that one small thing. Why? You're asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Lord, the owner of all things. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for everything. As some would say, for example, when we mentioned this before, you're stuck somewhere and you want to go home. So you make dua, oh Allah, just give me, I just want $1 to go home. Ya akhi, what if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you more than that? Don't make it confined to just that one thing. Right? You'll be content, alhamdulillah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if He provides you with something, be content with it. And especially when it comes to matters of the hereafter. Matters of dunya, we do not know what's good for us. But matters of the hereafter, we know what is good in the hereafter. So ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the highest level of Jannah. This is the real ambition here. When the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, he said, إِذَا سَأَلْتُمُ اللَّهَ الْجَنَّةَ فَاسْأَلُوهُ الْفِرْدَوْسَ الْأَعْلَى. If you ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the Jannah, ask Him for the highest level of Jannah, which is al-Firdaus al-A'la, which is under the throne of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it's the highest level of Jannah. Don't look at yourself, look at the mercy of Allah. If you look at yourself, if we look at ourselves, we don't deserve anything. And then the ambition that a person should have, because he's asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Lord of the Alameen, and He's the one subhanahu wa ta'ala that can change the heart. So if we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sincerely, increase our desire to seek the knowledge, give us the firm way to achieve knowledge, give us the ability to spend our wealth and our life for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to get the rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is how a person should be. Allahumma a'inni ala dhikrika wa shukrika wa husni ibadatik. So, and if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't help someone, if the entire world get together to help him, they won't be able to help him with anything whatsoever. So this is an important point, of course, which is part of what has been mentioned before. احرص على ما ينفعك, the hadith of the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام, واستعن بالله ولا تعجز. احرص على ما ينفعك. And if you remember, what is ihris? What is al-hirs? It's greed. When someone is greedy, that means he would take all the means to get what he is greedy for. So be greedy with regards to what's benefiting for you, in a good way, of course, and that is to make sure that you get it. But then wasta'in billah, as the Prophet ﷺ said, seek help from Allah, because you can never attain it except by the help of Allah. Wala ta'jaz, don't be lazy, don't be unable. Just take the first step and then the second one. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make it easy for you. And know that for a matter of reality, as Al-Hasan al-Basri rahimahullah, he said, هذه النفس, this nafs, nafsuk, إن لم تشغلها بالحق شغلتك بالباطل. If you're not getting yourself busy with the haqq, your nafs will get you busy with falsehood. So either or. There's no something in between. So to focus with our ijtihad and our focus on doing whatever we need to be upon, that's why the many different narrations of the people of knowledge in the past also, how they used to spend their time in seeking knowledge, and they would spend days and days without even remembering to eat even a real meal, just because they're going from one dars to the other, or studying and things of that nature. One of these things that the ulama, they say, which is we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us with that one, is when you have an environment that is muthabbita, when you have an environment that puts you down. We see that in ourselves as human beings, as mentioned before. I'm kind of reviewing for the exam, inshallah. Al-insan madaniyun bil-tab', the famous statement of Ibn Khaldun. The human beings are civil by nature. They like to communicate, they like to be together. And at-tiba', another thing to remember, at-tiba'u sarraqa. The habits steal from one another. So when people are together, if you are in an environment where people have the high ambitions of good things, you'll have the same thing. You get affected. It's contaminating, right? It's contagious. It's contagious. People will get affected. Human beings are contagious to one another, even if you look at someone. So it doesn't have to be, as we heard also yesterday, if you remember. If you sit with someone, not with his qawl and fi'l only, not his speech and actions you get affected, it's by his presence. The presence of people has an effect on other people. So if you are in the company of those who are lousy, right, or they just wasting their life, you'll be like them wasting your life. And if you're with people that are having high zeal of what is best for them, you'll have the same thing. But then the reality is, where is this environment? And if we complain that this environment is not there, so let's seek help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make this environment. The environment starts with one person, right? And then another person, then a third person. Then if there's so many people like this, then you become help for others. So when people, come to these types of environments, and many people, the reason why they embraced Islam or they were guided is because they saw an environment. Someone, subhanAllah, one time, long time, when someone entered the masjid, the khutbah al-Jumu'ah, nowadays we're more focused on what is said in the khutbah, right? Which is good, of course. The khutbah should be a good subject, remind us of the hereafter and things like this. But when someone enters a masjid, and the environment of the masjid, those who are attending Salatul Jumu'ah, they're following the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, they're coming early, they're reading Quran, making dua, making salah, things like this. And someone would enter, regardless of what the khutbah is, this by itself can have a great effect on the person. So this is something to pay attention to. So the issue of, if you find yourself in an environment that doesn't help you to have this high zeal of something that you know that is good, and if you have the means, go somewhere where you can have this high zeal of things. That's why when you look into the circles of the ulama and the people of knowledge, you will have these types of things by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the environment, the friends, as the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, he said, "Inna min al-nasi nasan mafatihun lil-khayr maghaliqun lil-shar." From the people are people, those who are keys for good, and they close the gates of evil. So these are the ones that the most valuable thing that we need to seek in this life. And if we claim that there's not much, which we shouldn't, then we should be upon this. So as this author that we mentioned before, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu, and he's Sahabi, one of the great companions of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, there was a tabi'i, his name is Rabi' ibn Khuthaym. Every time when he entered this tabi'i, he did not see the Prophet ﷺ, and his level, of course, compared to the levels of the companions radiallahu anhum, is of no comparison whatsoever. No one is the like of the companions radiallahu anhum. But this man, Rabi' ibn Khuthaym, when Abdullah ibn Mas'ud would see him, he said to him, "Ya Aba Yazid," Abdullah ibn Mas'ud is saying that to Rabi' ibn Khuthaym, "لو رآك رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم لأحبك." What kind of status that is? If the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم saw you, he would love you. This is a tazkiyah, a praise that who can have this. This is from Abdullah ibn Mas'ud saying that to this man. If the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم saw you, he would love you. Can we relate to something like this? Where is our actions and our speech and what's in our hearts? And he said, وَمَا رَأَيْتُكَ إِلَّا ذَكَرْتُ الْمُخْبِتِينَ. Every time I see you, I remember the mukhbitin, those who are devoted in the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the ibadah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's why the ulama and the early generations of Islam will talk about sitting with the people of knowledge and staying away from the people of al-bid'ah innovations. Don't sit with them. They will affect you. They will ruin their hearts. They will corrupt your hearts and things like this. So this is such an important thing that part of the intentions to seek knowledge is to be upon to have healthy environment where people are reminding one another of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Shaykh Hafidhullah, when he talked about this subject, he mentioned some of the examples. Some of the examples of how the early generations of Islam would have that zeal of knowledge, and they would forget many of the materialistic things and benefits in this life. One of which is Nadr ibn Shumayl. He used to say, لا يجد المرء لذة العلم حتى يجوع وينسى جوعه. That a person doesn't find the sweetness or the taste of al-ilm till he is hungry and he forget that he's hungry. You know that clearly if you're also in matters of dunya, right? Someone is going after what he like in this world, what happens? He's hungry, but he forgets that he's hungry because he's busy. His heart is busy with what's enjoyable to him. How we need to be upon like this matter when it comes to matters of the hereafter. This subject of ash-shaghaf, or again the zeal that a person would have when it comes to matters of ilm, is with the dua and with seeking help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Otherwise is the nations and the people and everything like this, if they're not upon this, they would ruin themselves. And the strength of the believers is in their hearts. So again, to make it easy for ourselves. So don't belittle yourself, because the strength is in one's heart, and we should not choose anything less than to take the means to perfect ourselves and to perfect our life with what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us. Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah, he says, اعلم أن العبد إنما يقطع منازل السير إلى الله منازل السير إلى الله بقلبه وهمته لا ببدنه. Have the knowledge that the person, he gets into the journey and into the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with his heart and his zeal and his ambition, not with his physical body. Why? Because وَالتَّقْوَى فِي الْحَقِيقَةِ تَقْوَى الْقَلْبِ. The taqwa in reality is the taqwa of the heart. As the Prophet ﷺ said, التَّقْوَى ها هُنَا التَّقْوَى ها هُنَا لا تَقْوَى الْجَوَارِحِ. Not the taqwa of the physical body and the physical actions. This is the result of what's present in the heart. And not to belittle the physical actions, of course, but this is the outcome of what's in the heart. So to have this life of the heart, and to have the life of the heart, the proper life of the heart, is to take the means to be upon what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us. And people are in levels according to the zeal of things and how they are seeking rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this matter and this subject. One of these ma'aqid, or these points that he mentioned, where we stopped at number 15, where he said something, we'll just take, we have 20 minutes left inshallah ta'ala, a very important point, which is when it comes to matters of ilm, and that's why a person should seek knowledge, some things that we might not understand, what do? We ask the people of knowledge. And this is the way of life that a believer should have. So al-mushkal, something that is difficult, that we don't understand, rad, as he says, raddu mushkalihi ila ahli, to refer what you don't understand to the people of knowledge. And this becomes a way of life of the Muslim. And there are things which is, again, a person studying matters of belief, how to purify himself, how to make salah, ask those who have the knowledge of it. And the major things that happens to this ummah, then not the normal ones will speak about it. Let the major ulama speak about the matter. Otherwise, people would fall into the fitan. And as he mentions here, when it comes to the ulama and the respect of the ulama, some people, they follow their desires and they make statements or they make conclusions based on what they see or what they think or what they read, and they turn away from the ilm and the knowledge of the wahy of the Quran and the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. And others, those who would not take the ulama as the ones to ask, but rather they would make something as the Prophet ﷺ, اتخذوا رؤوسا جهالا فأفتوا بغير علم فضلوا وأضلوا. They took ignorant heads and they would ask them and they would give fatwas and verdicts without knowledge, and they would lead people astray. So this is what needs to be done. And then at the end, that's what he says, كما هو مشاهد في عصرنا فإنما نشأت كثير من الفتن حين تعرض للرد على زلات العلماء والمقالات المخالفة للشريعة بعض الناشئة الأغمار. When things are left to those who are not necessarily young in age, but those who are not the people of knowledge, they're the ones that are talking, and they're the ones that responding to the mistakes of the ulama. If there is mistakes instead of the ulama, then it becomes those who are, they did not maintain the value of the ilm. So pay attention to this basically, and that is to always, when it comes to actions, where do we take our actions from? From the ulama. We don't take actions except from the ulama. If someone is reminding us, then it can be anybody reminding us. reminding us of the hereafter, the Jannah and the Nar, al-wa'z, admonition, like this. But when it comes to action, do this, do not do this, this is halal, this is haram. We take that from the ulama, or someone that narrates to us what the ulama they say. Other than that, we stay away, because this deen is not like this for anyone to say anything, whatever they want to say in it. And one of the things that would give us that zeal to be upon the ilm, as Sheikh Ibn Zidan, when he said that statement, which is a very important one when it comes to matters of ilm, people are of three categories and nothing else with regards to the ilm. Alimun Rabbani, alim, a person of knowledge, Rabbani, upon what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from him, ilm and amal and actions and so on. And the second category is what? ومتعلم على سبيل النجاة. متعلم, someone that is learning on the path of being saved. He wants to save himself. And the third category is what? همج رعاع يتبعون كل ناعق. همج رعاع is the nomads, the masses, that they follow anyone that is loud in voice. And this is what human beings are. They just follow whoever. Every few years they follow this, and then they follow that, and they keep on changing like this. No ilm that they follow. So it's a choice whether a person wants to be from the people of knowledge or muta'allim, and that's the only path to reach the first one, is for a person to learn, seeking to save himself, seeking salvation by learning the deen of Allah. And this is wajibul waqt, this is the mandatory action to be done nowadays. This is the most important thing to be done now, as the ulama they say. Many things of acts of obedience a person might be not able to do, and anything to be established with the deen has to come through ilm, especially at times of weaknesses and things like this. The number 16 one is, which is repeated many times in this week, and that is to respect majalisul ilm. So each and every one of us, even if someone that is not into the path of seeking knowledge, make it upon yourself that you come to the gatherings of ilm, not the gatherings of just getting together. You know, and we have to make sure in هذا العلم دين فانظروا عمن تأخذون دينكم, the statement of Ibn Sirin. This ilm is deen. Ilm is deen. Seeking knowledge is deen. To come into a gathering of ilm, this is deen. So look where you're getting your religion from. Don't get it from a mubtada', someone innovating their religion. Someone is making up his own stories when it comes to matters of deen. So as a result of that, take it upon yourself, as this is a matter of deen and it's ibadah, to come to the majalis of the ilm and to respect it and to exalt it so that you can benefit from it. And the aw'iyah and the containers of the ilm is, of course, are the people of knowledge. Sahl ibn Abdullah, he said, Man arada an yanzura, and listen to the words of the early generations of Islam. Man arada an yanzura ila majalis al-anbiya falyanzur ila majalis al-ulama. Whoever wants to look at the majalis of the prophets, if you want to look at the gatherings of the prophets, look at the gatherings of the ulama. يجيء الرجل فيقول, a man would come and he would say, يا فلان أي شيء تقول في رجل حلف على امرأته بكذا وكذا. Oh, so and so. He's talking to the alim. What is the ruling? What do you see in a man swear on his wife that this and this, matters of talaq, divorce, something like this. فيقول طلقت امرأته. He would say his wife is divorced from him. ويجيء آخر فيقول, and another man would come, ما تقول في رجل حلف على امرأتي بكذا وكذا. The same question comes from another person that he swear on his wife with such and such. So then the answer will be ليس يحنث بهذا القول, meaning his wife is not divorced as a result of that statement. The question is the same, but someone said something versus something else, right? So who's the one that gives that verdict based on ilm, not based on desire? Of course, the alim. So this is the majalis of the ulama. So he says, وَلَيْسَ هَذَا إِلَّا لِنَبِيٍّ أَوْ لِعَالِمٍ فَاعْرِفْهُ لَهُمْ ذَلِكَ. And this is not for anyone but a prophet or a alim or a person of knowledge. So acknowledge that for them. Which also shows at the same time the danger of speaking about the deen of Allah without knowledge, especially with matters like this. A person would say to a man, your wife is not divorced when she's divorced. So they're living together in haram because of that simple words that came out of the mouth of that person without ilm. And it's not simple words, this is major issues. So this is for a prophet or a alim, which shows the virtue of the ilm, and these are the majalis of the ulama, even with matters of fiqh like this. And as Malik ibn Anas, Imam Dar al-Hijra, when he said, إن مجالس العلماء تحتضن بالخشوع والسكينة والوقار. The majalis of the ulama is surrounded with khushu', with devotion, with tranquility, with respect. And that's why whenever he would sit, Imam Malik rahimahullah, of course, with having wudu, and he would sit in such a respectful way, and he would comb his beard and things of that nature. And he talks about some of the respect that they would have, and we talked about this before. But alhamdulillah, of course, we have to observe our environment. Alhamdulillah, we're different environment, so it's okay to have the children and the families, inshallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all steadfastness. But in their majalis, they would not even hear the sound of someone yabri qalama. Someone is sharpening his pencil. They would not even hear that noise. Why? Because of the silence that they have, and the khushu' and the respect that they have to the ilm and the people of knowledge. And as if they are in salah whenever they would be in the gatherings of ilm. And many other etiquettes that we talked about it, inshallah ta'ala, before throughout the week. The number 17, as also mentioned before, is to الذب عن العلم والذود عن حياضه. Since the ilm, the knowledge, is such an important, the most important thing in our life, and it's ibadah and so on, we need to protect it, we need to defend it. And what does that mean? When someone goes against the ilm, said something against the haqq, the truth that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed to the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, the people of knowledge, they have to defend the religion. They have to defend the knowledge by pushing away this falsehood and explaining to the people and conveying to the people that this is the haqq that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed. So that's why this is a subject that many people don't like. They think that it doesn't feel good when people are responding to those who said this, or talking about the people upon falsehood. What's the benefit of, what's the struggle between truthfulness and falsehood if the people of the truth do not show the people the falsehood? Ilm or knowledge or the haqq does not just by saying the truth and that's it. You have to say that this is haqq and this is batil. There is truth and there is falsehood based on the wahy from Allah, not persons' opinions and things like this. So the people of knowledge, they have this duty. When it comes to a personal level of relationships, this is something else. But when it comes to matters of the deen, then the deen is a different situation, and the haqq is more beloved to us than anyone else. And that's why, as Imam Ahmad rahimahullah and others, they said, الرد على المخالف فمن استبانت مخالفته للشريعة رد عليه كائنا من كان. Whoever is very clearly that saying something against the sharia, against the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this has to be explained to the people, depend on who the people are exposed to. حمية للدين, to protect the deen, ونصيحة للمسلمين, and to have the concern to the Muslimin. And as Imam Ahmad rahimahullah says, وَلَمْ يَزَلِ النَّاسُ يَرُدُّ بَعْضُهُمْ عَلَى بَعْضٍ. People continue to respond to one another with regards to the haqq versus falsehood. But who would do this? The people of knowledge, or conveying the message of the people of knowledge, not, as he said, لا للدهماء, not to the nomads and the people that have no knowledge whatsoever. مع لزوم الأدب, and continuously having adab with this, right? So if the ulama, when they talk about even one another, they do it with adab, with akhlaq, and without injustice and things like this, to protect the deen. And therefore the subject of hajj al-mubtada', to stay away from the people of innovations and things like this, all of that is needed. But again, this is by the people of knowledge. This is for the people of knowledge to be upon, and one of which is to respect matters of deen. Two more quickly, inshallah ta'ala, to stay away from the things that brings fitan, or brings things that is of no benefit whatsoever. Like, for example, questions that is of no reason whatsoever, or things, as we talked about, the adab or the manners of asking questions. This is a knowledge by itself. Someone would have a question for whatever evil and ill reasons that a person would have to spread fitan among the people, or things of that nature. A person should stay away from this. And he mentioned a very interesting situation here for us to see. Sometimes people, they ask in a tricky way, and the person of knowledge should be aware of this, and to be aware ourselves from having these ill feelings also, which is something that Imam al-Qarafi mentioned in his book Al-Ihkam. He said, I was asked one time about Aqd al-Nikah, a marriage contract, about making a marriage contract bil-Qahira, in Cairo. Is it permissible or not? Someone asked him, can I do the Aqd al-Nikah in Cairo? This is, Imam al-Qarafi hundreds of years ago. Is it permissible? So he says, فَارْتَبْتُ. And I was like, he says, مَا أُفْتِيك حَتَّى تُبَيْنَ لِي مَا الْمَقْصُودُ بِهَذَا الْكَلَامِ. I would not give you the answer till you tell me what's your object, what's the intent of this. What does that mean? Does it make sense? Is it permissible to make marriage contract in Cairo? Because everybody knows that it's permissible, whether it's in Cairo or Istanbul or whatever there is. Of course, he didn't say that. I'm saying that. So he says, فَلَمْ أَزَلْ بِهِ. So he kept with him till he said that they wanted to make the aqd or the nikah or the marriage outside of Cairo, so they were prevented because they were doing this istihlal, or when someone is divorced 3 times and they would make this the sneaky way, which is haram, to have the woman married to someone else and then divorce and things like this. Nikah wa tahleel, which is haram, taysul musta'ar, evil, major sin, of course, if someone do such a thing, which is haram. So they came to Cairo, so he wanted to get an answer from him so that he can spread it to the people, and then they would do what's haram. So, and this is what some people, they would do sometimes. They ask a question, what do you think, O person of knowledge, about this statement or that statement or whatever there is? And he would give an answer, and they would take this, and they would say, the alim said about that person, he's a evil one because that person said this. And the alim didn't say that. But they would take things out of context, and they would do evil things as a result of these fitan, and to spread fitan and things like this. A man asked Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal rahimahullah, عن يأجوج ومأجوج أمسلمون هم? Are they Muslims? So he said to him, أحكمت العلم حتى تسأل عن ذا? MashaAllah, you have lots of knowledge till you now asking about this. What's the benefit of such a question? And the same thing, who's the wife of Iblis? Things like this. So things of that nature that has no benefit whatsoever, and a person should learn. And that's not from the respect of the ilm. And he mentioned many examples of this. And the last thing is what we talked about, which is shaghaful qalb, to have the ambition. And then number 20, which needs a lecture, but inshallah tomorrow morning after Fajr we'll talk about it briefly, inshallah. Hifdhul waqti fil ilm. To guard your time, to be greedy with your time when it comes to seeking knowledge and everything. Of course, time is precious, because as all of what we mentioned before, this is what a person would have when he depart from this life and return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So how to guard our time, following the way of the early generations of Islam, so that we don't waste our life in what's not benefiting for us, inshallah ta'ala. So we'll stop here, inshallah ta'ala, because of the rest of the program with the snacks or so. But if you have any questions, please go ahead, inshallah. When it comes to tomorrow, inshallah ta'ala, the exam, you will receive the messages for it, inshallah ta'ala. And then the next thing is that we'll start, inshallah ta'ala, Monday with the program, inshallah, after Fajr and after Maghrib, and from 9 to 1, the Arabic classes, inshallah. Arabic language from 9 to 1, inshallah ta'ala. That's starting Monday. So tomorrow the exam, and there's nothing, inshallah ta'ala, after that on Sunday, as far as the program is concerned. There's the normal program on Sunday. After Fajr, you have the Adhkar, the weekly Adhkar by Sheikh Nashat, and after Maghrib, there will be something else, inshallah. But anyway, so Monday morning, inshallah ta'ala, is the program to start, inshallah.